again, welcome to this sort of double show. This afternoon, we will have two events. One is a presentation by Antonio Baldassarre from ENI, on the new global paradigm and a new development model, the role of forest. And that would be followed by a conference on artificial intelligence and how to address socio-economic inequality. And I will present the keynote speaker and the panelists at the beginning of the conference. So not wasting any time, because time is really tight. And I will just leave the floor to Antonio Baldassarre for his speech. You have the floor, Antonio.
Thank you very much, Mario, and good afternoon to everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for the invitation to participate to this event on a particularly current topic, such as the one that links economy and ecology and that makes us reflect once again on the planet and on our common home. We must always remember that the etymology of the terms economy and ecology derive from the same Greek word of oikos, which means home, and on that role that each of us has in preserving the world. We depend on nature for our own, for our very existence. We cannot forget that it is that which offers us the founding elements of our society. The soil from which we get food for livelihood, the raw materials we need to make home and clothes, the drinking water we drink, the grass we trample on, the forest we explore, and the clean air we breathe. A set of elements that together form the natural capital. A defined, exhaustible, and irreplaceable heritage that is to be protected, preserved, and safeguarded, whilst human beings for a long time have been confronted with it as if it was unlimited and infinitely regenerated. We often underestimate its importance. In order to return to a balanced situation, we need to act from a long-term perspective, which is to reduce the economy and the social gap, the economic and the social gap, by redistributing wealth fairly. Recognizing this weakness and depth to nature must help us to start again, no longer thinking in an individualistic perspective, but living on our common home, well aware that if we do not create a future for others, there will be no future for all of us either. It is the integral ecology of Laudato Si of 2015, a concept that clearly introduces how human and social dimensions are inextricably linked to the environmental issues. The challenge is, on the other hand, also in the face of a growing world population, that of meeting the growing energy needs, allowing above all access to energy in the poorest countries, and on the other hand, that of reducing the polluting impact of our activity, finding innovative and environmentally friendly solutions. All must be in balance with nature and in view of a real partnership, a reality that where material progress goes hand in hand with moral progress, where ethical reflection is also able to change the regulation and behavior of each one of us. Unlike in the past, the private sector must play a crucial role as a driver of development, balancing business objectives and local socioeconomic growth from a long-term perspective. An important role in all this certainly also must be the restoration of forest ecosystems, a process that concerns the recovery of ecological functions and the improvement of human well-being through forest landscapes that have been degraded. Forest restoration is not only concerned with the planting of individual tree, but also with the recovery of an entire landscape to meet present and future needs, ensuring multiple benefits, including the sustainable use of the land over time. Forests, as we see, play a role in combating climate change as an important element of emission mitigation. On one hand, they can cover more than 30% of the planet's surface by providing the fundamental action of absorbing carbon from the atmosphere to store it in its own tissues. On the other hand, counteracting its indiscriminate cutting reduces the amount of carbon released into the atmosphere. The degradation of forests and the reduction of their territorial extent resulting from unsustainable extensive farming practices, illegal logging, unsustainable use of biomass for energy purpose, and urbanization all contribute to increasing anthropogenic CO2 emissions and significantly reduce the natural carbon sink capacity of the atmosphere in the face of increasing emission linked to industrialization. For this reason, ENI has made forest conservation project one of the pillars of its decarbonization strategy. Climate change is a global problem and requires solutions on a global scale. Natural climate solutions are represented by conservation, restoration, and improvement of land management, by increasing carbon storage, avoiding greenhouse gases emissions into the atmosphere, using the most efficient natural technology, if we can call it so, at our disposal, which is the natural ecosystems. Combined with innovation in clean energy and other efforts to decarbonize the world's economies, they represent some of our best options in responding to climate change. And forests are a key part of this. The role of forests, for sometimes, ENI has embarked with conviction on the path of energy transition, in the knowledge that a project of a company must be compatible with the general interest. Also, for this reason, in the aftermath of participation into Climate Summit in September 2019 in New York, where the United Nations, governments, civil societies, and companies met to progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, the famous SDGs, ENI decided to modify its mission to reflect the full integration of these objectives into its business strategies and activities. If sustainability is not an integral part of a company's own strategy, it remains a good voluntary commitment and nothing else, really. For these reasons, ENI's missions, which aligns with the 17 SDGs, focuses particularly on 8 of these. In addition to the... Excuse me?
Go on, yeah, go on. You have 1 minute to go.
Yes. In addition to the global priorities related to the climate action and access to energy, it aims to contribute also to the consumption and responsible production and protection of the biodiversity. These initiatives are part of ENI has decided to develop and participate in forestry projects for the conservation of primary and secondary forests and biodiversity, also precisely within the framework of the aforementioned SDGs. These initiatives are part of the so-called REDD+ project, the Reducing Emission from Deforestation and Forest Degradation scheme, outlined by the United Nations itself. ENI has adopted a model that allows the organization to be within the governance of the projects, of this project, REDD+, developed with international partners, which guarantees compliance with company policies, as well as ensuring sustainability, environmental, social, and economic of projects in the long term. In a model, ENI has multiple roles: financing the project startup activities, guarantor of the sustainability, and according to its company standard, buyers of the credits. The economy sustainability of the project is guaranteed by the proceeds generated by the sales of credits that are reinvested in project activities aimed, on one hand, to ensure the conservation of forests, and on the other, to recompensate the local communities involved. This is a theme that collectively makes us all responsible, because like plants and fungi of an ecosystem, we are all interconnected. Thank you very much for allowing me this intervention.
Thanks a lot, Antonio. So now let's come to the conference on artificial intelligence and how to address socio-economic inequality. I will just introduce you the keynote speaker, which is Father Paolo Benanti, Franciscan of the Third Order Regular, and also a colleague academic, professor of moral theology, bioethics, neuroethics, technology, ethics, artificial intelligence, and posthumanism. Wow, what's a title! At the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome. Our panelists are Jonathan Dornelles Francis, director of the Brand Theatre, a consulting in Singapore. Carlos Lemos, assistant of laboratory medicine at the Lisbon Medical School in Lisbon, Portugal. And Colin Gilbert, head of partnership and pedagogy at Sow2Grow, if the pronunciation is not too bad, and AI-powered learning and empowerment platform for empower socio-economic marginalized students. So without taking any further time from the discussion, I will just give the floor to Paolo Benanti for his introduction and kickoff speech. So Paolo, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I know that we have more than 5,000 people watching at us, so I'm not able to say good morning, good evening, or good night to everyone because we are worldwide, but welcome to everyone in this Assisi moment. I have the privilege to ignite a discussion on one of the hottest topics in the momentum, that is AI. So in which way I would like to prefer to ignite that kind of discussion? Let me remember what a famous poet, Rilke, was used to write in letters to a young poet. It's not much important the answer, it's much more important the question. So to simply show you some question, let me take an example from real life. I would like to show you a real demo of a real application that is live in London that comes from Babylon Health System, and is a demo of a medical AI support system. And what we will see is the doctor side of this system. So let me show this demo that simple bring to the doctor which kind of new medicine AI can produce. I share the audio. Let's see, and I will comment on it. So this is the doctor. Doctor can answer to the patient in.
Hi, Louise. My name's Dr. Kultag Archer. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too.
So I can see you've completed our AI assessment. And from this, can I confirm that you've been having dizziness for a few months now, with some hearing loss and also some ringing in your ears?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, you look quite comfortable at the moment. So does the dizziness come and go?
Yeah, I don't have it at the moment.
Okay. And when you do get the dizziness, how long?
Paolo, the volume of the video is very high and we cannot hear you.
So let me say it again, okay?
Yeah. Okay, fine, thanks.
This is the good thing when you have a non-mobile setting on no background back office.
Okay.
So as you can see, this is the doctor side, okay? In this demo, you can see that the patient is asking for some kind of diagnosis for some pain in the head. And the doctor is talking to the patient, and the machine here on the right side is making a real-time transcription of the discussion. During the transcription, what you can see is that the machine is highlighting some words that go in 3 different columns just over the transcription. And the columns are personal diagnosis, family diagnosis, social diagnosis. I have pain in my head. All my family had pain in the head. Or all the people that live in my neighbor have pain in the head. Real time, the machine is suggesting just below the picture the next question to the doctor. And in real time, you see the digital twin of the patient, lower left bottom corner, and also in the middle, a real-time assessment of the diagnosis that is changing during the interview. I will play again the presentation. Please look inside the picture when a pink band appears over the face of the patient, because there is an emotional analysis of the patient in real time. Let's
say probably, yeah.
Okay, and does changing the position of your head bring on the dizziness?
Now, as you can see, the doctor make the question that is suggested by the machine. And the patient is not able to understand which kind of question the doctor is making to her. And the machine gives immediately a feedback to the doctor saying, look, the patient didn't understand you. Please reformulate. Look at how the doctor handled it.
Sorry, what I mean to say is, do you get dizzy, for example, when you turn your head to look to one side or when you turn over in bed?
Oh, okay. No.
Have you felt sick or vomited when you get the dizziness?
No.
And is there anything else you wanted to tell me about your symptoms? For example, have you had any headache, any weakness, any numbness at all?
No.
Okay. According to our records,
Okay, the machine has finished the question suggested to the doctor, and the doctor has a real-time live possible causes of the pain of the patient, and it's ready to confirm the diagnosis that the machine is giving. Now, final question is about some possible reaction to drugs that the doctor is to prescribe. Look at that.
You also had glandular fever a few months ago. Has that all settled?
Yeah, that was awful. It's gone now.
Great. I mean, just looking at the blood test results from back then, they all came back normal as well.
Great.
So I would agree with our AI assessment.
That's the point. I would agree to the AI assessment. Now, between the doctor and the patient, the relationship is with a middle layer that is AI, that is giving an assessment.
It looks like your symptoms are being caused by an ear condition called Meniere's disease. This causes a buildup of pressure within the balance center. And that's what causes those awful dizzy episodes that you've been getting.
Okay.
The most important thing now is to relieve those awful symptoms. So I'd like to prescribe something called prochlorperazine. Can I just double check you're not pregnant at all?
No chance of that.
And you're not allergic to any medications?
No.
Okay. So I'll send that prescription to your usual pharmacy. It'll take around an hour or so.
Now, the patient is worried. Why? I'm feeling bad. I'm calling the doctor, and the doctor is dismissing me with just simple drugs. The machine, it's aware of that. It is suggesting to the doctor to give them a more calming answer.
Okay.
Does that all sound okay?
It sounds a little bit serious.
Well, as you found out, the symptoms can be really serious when you have them, but Meniere's itself usually isn't, and it can be really well managed with the medication.
Okay, thanks.
One thing to mention, given that it looks like you do have Meniere's disease, this could put you at a high risk of getting migraines. So I'd like you to do our migraine risk assessment, and that way we can see if there's anything that we can help you to reduce your risk.
Okay, yep.
Okay, we are going to the end. Now the call is going to the end. And you can see that with just one click, all the discussion with the doctor, all the assessment became a notes made by the machine. Now, let me simple make question, like Rilke was used to say to the letter to a young poet. First of all, we have to ask to ourselves, what does it mean to have the convenience to have a doctor that is ready to you without booking an appointment, especially now in COVID-19? So AI can simply produce you a doctor available at any moment through a machine. It's like to make a phone call. And with this Skype call, you will have an assessment. Is it the same things to have a human-to-human interface or have human-machine-human interface? Then the second question is, what does it mean that a doctor is making a diagnosis with the assistance of a machine? Probably someone of you will remember some phone number of people that was used to know before the diffusion of mobile phone. Now with mobile phone, we do not remember any more phone number because the machine is doing for us. What I'm talking here is the de-skilling that machine in an automatic process is producing on the human side. So what happened to a doctor that for 5 years is making this kind of assessment helped by a machine? How much it will be able to know himself how a diagnosis works, or is simple a human interface between a machine and a human being? The second thing is we could think that the automation and the new level of innovation will simply disrupt the blue collar. What is shown here is that white collar, the best paid job, will have the biggest impact with automation and AI. And that happened because they are more connected to data. And handling data, a machine is much, much powerful than a human being. Probably robotic cannot replace a hammer worker in a line, but can replace bankers, can replace everyone that is making a risk assessment, and a lot of people that has the best paid job. Another question is, if you look at what's happening here, we are making a statistical evaluation of something that we call health. If you look down, you see that 90% of percentage is that the patient has Meniere syndrome. This does not mean that this patient, in 90% of cases, this is the diagnosis. That means that with 100 patients, 90 will be with this kind of diagnosis. But when we call about a medical decision on a human being, it's not a matter of serious, it's a matter of one, your life count, not the life in a series. More than that, what happened to the middle layer? What happened to the Babylon Health that is serving in the middle between a national health service and the patient? All the data, all the knowledge that the machine is acquiring on the patient give and shift a leverage of power. This society can simply say next year what is the most needed drugs in the market. And that give a really advantage position in a global market. So I can go on and on with a lot of questions about that. But the real problem is, first, is the decision that the machine is making in a more automatic way good or bad? To answer to that question, we have to open a black box that are the algorithms that are inside. And to open the algorithm, we should put two kind of guardrail that guide the decision-making process. This ethical guardrail has to be ethical and machine understandable. So if it's a matter of ethics and algorithm, we should start to write a new chapter of ethics that we can define algorithms, a way in which ethical directives are made and computed by the machine. The second thing is that no tools is a matter of good or bad. Every tool could be a weapon or could be a tools. So we have to ask in which way these tools is shifting the power inside the society. More than asking is good as bad, we have to ask to ourselves how AI is shifting the power inside the society and is changing the economical power and the structure inside the society. I think that my time is going to finish here. And so I left the stage to my panelists, and I'm ready to have some questions.
Okay, thanks, Paolo. Perfectly in time. So, Jonathan, that's your turn, and I don't steal any time, so that I will maybe have 2 minutes for adding also a question. So, Jonathan, it's your turn.
All right, thank you. Great presentation. I was very much in line with my thoughts. Like for me, because I work with a lot of companies in a HR sense, so about how AI is actually trying to impact now the hiring processes as well. So basically, like a lot of companies now, they're trying to use all this this AI regarding the expressions, judging by people for the expressions. Companies like I think HireVue, they are doing that. So basically, what's happening here is they are trying to quantify human expression and human behavior by collecting all this data. So there's this whole point, that we bring up about the question of ethics and morals as well, and whether people already should know beforehand that they are being tested and being put through the paces of AI as well. Then on the flip side of things as well, I know that companies are trying to do this in order to cut down on costs perhaps and time spent on the hiring process, but would also AI lead to that point where would AI also be able to figure out an individual's background and the socio-economic status of that person, because we all behave in different ways because of the way that we were brought up. And this is something that I feel that maybe AI is not maybe not mature enough at this time to bring up that point as well. And also for me, when I look at it and I understand that I'm from Asia, right? And when we look at all these algorithms and things and expressions, are they based also solely on what is happening in the West, or are they taking into consideration facial expressions and behaviors? Would they have enough data for them to actually make a good judgment of what's happening as well? And for me, through this whole thing, what I believe at this point, correct me if I'm wrong also, Paulo, as well, is that I'm feeling that humans are now trying to absolve themselves of blame by putting responsibility and decisions in the hands of AI, which takes away the whole empathy and what human society is all about. And from a point of view, from a hiring perspective, there's only so much I feel that AI can do, because even like in South Korea, there are cram schools now that you can go to prepare yourself for AI based interview. So there's a lot of ways that people can bypass things, and I feel that through AI, people who are from much more impoverished backgrounds, they might not be able to bypass this. I mean, the basically the AI is already judging the human, right, on behalf of the human. So I mean, the last few points that I like to bring up as well is, you know, AI is also used for many other things, you know, weaponry and things like that. You know, I think we have arrived at that point where we have to ask ourselves this question: should AI also be allowed to make human and life decisions, right? And in relation not into killing only, but the life decision of a human being being able to improve him or herself by being hired in a very fair way. So I feel that AI, instead of putting fairness back into hiring, it has actually caused an imbalance. In my opinion, I'm not too sure what you think about that as well. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Now the floor is your Carlos for a viewpoint from the medical profession. So
okay, so I think these kind of tools are very important, and in the future they will be mainstream in the area of medicine. However, I think in the top of the loop, on the level of decisions, I think there must be always a human, a doctor, a healthcare professional. I think this is not AI question. We will have to share our role with machines as well, and with artificial intelligence. They will never be able to work alone, because in the end it will be the decision of a doctor. I think AI is not going to substitute doctors so early in time, but they will help us through algorithms and to these new technologies and new data that can have that they can get from patients to help us to establish a diagnosis. And I think this is very important, because this way doctors can refocus their energy and their attention on patient care and our tasks that are specific and just humans can do, like comforting patients and strengthening the doctor-patient relationship as well. I think we will share this ground with artificial intelligence. I think it will be a valuable tool, undoubtedly, but the stage won't be just we have to design an ethical framework so that we can drive artificial intelligence in a way that can serve patients the best way possible.
Okay, thanks, Carlos, and also for sparing some time. So, Colin, this is your turn, and so just take the floor.
Yeah, so I work with an organization called Sown to Grow, where we've built artificial intelligence technology that's actually has some overlaps with the technology that Father Paulo shared, but in the education space. So we work with thousands of students who are doing goal setting and reflection practices using artificial intelligence to help them identify what type of academic and social emotional strategies are actually working best to help them improve in learning. And I think similar to the demo that Father Paulo just did, we've put a lot of emphasis and see the importance of not just feeding AI straight back to students. And so in this case, all of the AI goes to a teacher, and then the teacher uses that to then provide feedback for students. And so that's something that some people have always asked us, oh, can we just go straight to the student? And I think that is one ethical realm of how companies need to just think of exactly the human interaction with this, to have another layer of processing to make sure that it's being implemented in a way that's actually helping humanity, as opposed to, I think of the term runaway artificial intelligence, of where it could go out of control and have harm on the people who are using it. I think just we've done a lot of work, especially in the last year with the pandemic, of students' social emotional well-being and identifying particularly struggling students using artificial intelligence during these times where school has been remote and it's been a big struggle. I think out of my own curiosity, as perhaps we're going to turn this back over to Father Paulo to answer some questions, but I think, we were talking a lot here about the role of and the ethical responsibility of companies in this. But in a globalized economic world that is still predominantly driven by capitalism, where the end goal will remain profit, what are actual policies that countries can put in play to, I think, in a sense, make sure that artificial intelligence is not being used for harm. That's kind of one of my questions. And then the second, I think, that, the overarching topic of this talk is about economic inequality and how artificial intelligence will play a role in that. And it's something especially being in the US, I think there's a worry of artificial intelligence will eliminate jobs of working class, and without, it'll do the lower scale jobs. And I guess other than ideas like universal basic income and things like that, what other policies can be implemented where humans are still involved in there, and there's artificial intelligence doesn't just exacerbate income inequality, where those who are creating it and benefiting from it are becoming a lot richer, while the rest of society is left behind. So those are some of the questions that I regularly think about.
Okay. So thanks to the discussion. And so since they were really disciplined, and I will just ask 2 minutes to also add a few questions also to Paolo, so that he got a full serve of answer after raising question also. I just have 2 questions from the economist point of view. And the first one is, yes, you refer to the idea that artificial intelligence is replacing white collar kind of job. And this is, in fact, one of the result of the famous Frey and Osborne paper published a few years ago in Oxford. And in fact, if you look at some US data, then you realize that the fastest expected job growth in the USA, so the jobs that the US government expect to grow the fastest in, between 2016 and 2026 are personal care aides, food preparers and servers, registered nurses, home health aides, and then janitors and cleaners, operation managers, laborers and movers, medical assistant, and wait staff. So in a sense, that's really, there are lots of, let's say, you would say unskilled, very low skill, but very manual kind of activity that will not be hit by AI. And on the other hand, there are some, as you said, some white collar jobs are connected with data, and recognizing data patterns is the best job AI can do it. Now, my question is, and I definitely, I don't know the answer, but I really think that your question about what about transforming a human to human relation into a human machine human kind of relation, are we sure that the nature of the relation does not change? And I just wanted to add a second issue, which is connected because artificial intelligence needs data. Now, we know that one of the problems in the modern capitalism, and especially with platform capitalism, is the hunger of data that platform companies need to have. So to get data from all the users and then feed this data into the artificial intelligence in order to be more targeting, more effective as marketing and this kind of thing. So I think that this is also a problem. As far as Colin was raised the problem of inequality, I think that there are some tools. For example, you can use taxation. For example, try to ask or to give some incentive to companies not to store such an enormous amount of data, or at least to pay for it. And that is maybe a minor correction, but I think that sometimes we have to think also about making minor correction instead of just thinking about a revolution. That could be also the case, but I think that we also have to act incrementally. But that's, the floor is yours, Paolo, and then if there is time, I would like also the discussion between you and the discussant to go further on. Paolo.
I think that I don't have the time to answer to all the deepened questions that AI is arising. Of course, because it's a general purpose technology. And like every general purpose technology is not changing the way in which we are doing one thing, but like electrical power, like steam, is changing the way in which we do all the things. And this huge transformation, thanks to AI, is the thing that is simple confusing us because we can look in every direction. So first of all, we have to understand and we have to ask to ourselves and to it's our duty as a generation answering to this situation. If we would like to think the machine, and when I say machine, I'm thinking about robot or bot AI moved. If we have to simple develop an evolutionary conflict between Homo sapiens and Machina sapiens, or if we have to think about a human-centered AI, in which the AI tools, robotic or bot, is simple given to flourish the human ability. These are two different developing models in which human side is useless or is the center of developing of the tools. Of course, probably, if we develop an image recognition software that simple can make a quality observer in a serious production, for example, like a production of nail, there is no needing of a human overwatching the quality production of nail. It can be done by a machine. But if we look at some kind of tools, is the tools has to replace the human decision-making or has to allow the human part in this process to better choose? So the first question is this: is a replacement technology or an enhancing technology? And this is something that cannot happen for the willing of one company or one society. Is something that need a more discussion, a broad discussion in which different voices have to speak, have to agree. We need company, we need a different stakeholder, we need academia, we need governments, we need NGO, we need a cultural shift to have this leap, this technological leap, human compatible, societal compatible. We need a broader environment in which different perspectives can agree and can discuss. And something like that is happening, to be honest with you. In Europe Council, we have a panel on that, CAHI. In European Union, there is something like that. Last February, I know that COVID-19 simple cancel every other kind of news, but in the Holy See, Microsoft, Brad Smith and Kelly III from IBM with FAO and with the Italian government come to sign a Rome AI ethic call with some principle saying that it's time to do this shift, to make an ethical shift because the human being has to be in the center. Now, coming to some vertical questions that arise from your panelists. If we take this standpoint that a correct AI evolution is the one that allows the human being to be in the center, to flourish himself, should we ask to ourselves, is an AI system, for example, that will extinguish a radiologist, or will be a radiologist that use AI that will extinguish a radiology that will not use? The way in which you answer to that is a way in which we have to say, like Mario suggests, if we have to train other radiologists for the next generation of radiologists that we need, or if it's better to acquire more data as we can and develop a better software. And once we have, let's go with the software. Now, the problem, it's also data connected because, this kind of system has bias connected to data. And there is a philosophical problem behind, because there is no perfect data that can simply produce a perfect decision. Because there is a base truth developing AI, and this base truth, when you put to one data, one label, is something that the developer is giving. Now, because we are in economy of Francesco, let me stress also this. How these models are trained. If you look how a lot of AI software are developed today, you have huge medical company in the States, for example, that is sending a lot of imaging, medical imaging, to Asia, where untrained people are underpaid, simple to mark this kind of data. So there is also not only inequality, there is also a really unjust production of the tools, unsafe The other thing is, don't forget that an AI software, mathematically speaking, is an optimized software. Once I went to a big company, I don't make any name in this situation, and I play with their AI medical system. And because I'm really nasty when I want to be, I ask to the system in a certain way, make it simple. I ask to the system, how can we defeat the cancer? And the answer was, because it is the first optimized solution that the system saw, kill all the human beings. It works. Is that acceptable? So there is a difference between an optimization made with data and number and a viable solution in which the values are not just number, are also ethical values and other kind of values. So we need to bridge the two. We cannot allow a machine to decide alone on the human life. The second thing is, there is another thing is, sorry, I go really fast, but the questions are so much and I'm just spreading.
Yeah, we are enjoying it. Just go on.
If we talk about data produced by a chain of sensor inside an engineering projected plan, okay, the machine, the AI system have a wonderful prediction model. So for example, in a huge 20,000 tons vessel that is going inside the pond from one side to another, the sensor on the engine, it's able to give us a really exact model of when the engine of the ship will break up. In the International Space Station, the vibration, the variation of vibration on a lot of companies give us a perfect model that allow astronauts to change the defective part before they broke. Because it's a mechanical process, it's an engineered process. So prediction is the biggest power of a lot of AI systems. But when we allow this system to work not only on data produced by sensor, but also to another kind of data produced by the human interaction inside the social network, inside the platform, inside a lot of other situations of real life, we can recognize something really different. That the AI system not only predict what will happen, but they are able to produce some kind of behavior. And now I'm coming back to Colin with a really provocative answer. If you look at what happened on the big e-commerce, okay? On the big e-commerce platform, I'm making no name here, when you see under the product that you're looking, probably you are interested also to this profiling AI algorithm is not just predicting what you are interested to, it's also producing a plus 10% selling. Now, if I apply to school, I'm just predicting something, or am I also producing some kind of outcome in the interaction? If this is true, we should probably look at the algorithm in AI like drugs. You know, when you buy a drugs, there is a little fact sheet that say, look, this could be an unwanted results. Be careful. So probably the time is now to produce not just AI algorithms, but also to produce fact sheet that has which data are used, which kind of bias could be inside, which kind of side effect we can expect using a lot of interaction of that algorithm in a social environment. So basically, AI is much more a social actor than not a tools. And this is another new things that we have to understand. Because the AI algorithm, it's able to adjust itself to acquire an objective, to obtain some kind of results. And they make it really powerful in changing how the society works. If you look at the recent election all around the world, you can see that AI algorithm and social platform can simply shape a different public opinion. I'm not saying that we are simple under the domination of algorithm, but sometimes 5 to 7% of changing of public opinion can produce a really different results. And so, the questions are really are a lot. And I understand data and taxation. Let me make a difference, between bot and robot. There is a paradox that we have to understand, and it's the Moravec paradox. A machine, with machine AI, software and hardware, it's much, much more effective in doing high-level cognitive tasks than not low-level. It's much, much easier to produce a calculator that make the cubic root of 27 than not a robotic hand that open up a door. A 3-year-old kid can open a door, but cannot make a cubic square of 27. So that means, this is the Moravec paradox, that the handiwork, the blue-collar work, the works in which I have to handle real things, are much more madeable by human beings. Would you like to know what I mean? That if you have a delivery food services, you need worker that put muscular work inside the bike to bring you the food. But SAP, the software that connect food owner and food producer, is a software. No one of the rider can go to the place of the manager because it's a software system. So you will have a generation of rider, but no one will be the boss of that rider. And that is a really huge shift in the labor market, in the work market. And we have to train people to avoid to stay in a low level, because the high level will be just simple AI or other software. Data in taxation, and I'm going to finish. I know there is a lot of, yes, data is a source of power, a source of production of this kind of power. Someone is used to say data is the oil of the 21st century. I agree and disagree. I agree because, like the oil, is something that can let the engine go. But look at what happened. The oil, okay, you can stock, you can have a lot of oil, but once it's used, it's used. You can use data as long as you wish, and you can produce much, much more information from that data. It's not just one shot. And that makes really difficult to work with data and to hypothesize a taxation on data. Because, it's not just a matter of have a stock of data. Because once you train an intelligent system on data, that data are useless. And you have the intelligent system. And so I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm just saying that it's a complex model in which we cannot simply apply a former model to this model. Yes, I agree. The platform is the real challenge now, because we are exchanging our data for services. If someone of you remember the early years of this century, we are used to pay a fee to have a GPS navigation system. Every year we have to pay 100 euros or something like that. Now the best navigation system, GPS system, is free installed in our mobile phone. Who is paying for that? Of course, we with our data. And so the platform requires that we stay much more on that platform to pay with our data. This is an uneven exchange, a really unequal exchange, because the knowledge is really different on the two sides. And it's much more like if we was back on the medieval time. In the medieval time, we have the landowners and the worker of the land. Now we have the data lord, landlord and data lord, and we have the people that is producing data. This model has to provoke us. I'm not saying that it's bad taxation on data. I'm only saying that it's not so easy to taxate something that you can move from one side to the other in the world with just one click. So I think I am scared that the classical instruments that we have to recognize the richness and to have a taxation on richness, simple could be useless if we talk about data. And what happened if, like Elon Musk, we put data in the space? Who is the owners of that data? There is no state power on that data. And we can imagine much more complex situation, but I think that our time is gone.
Okay, we almost there. So thanks to Paolo for his complete and exhaustive remark. Let me just end with a saying, if you are not paying for a product, you are the product. That's something that is used to say in economics. And second, we have some old tools, and I just think that so one would be just the power of prohibiting an action, and the second is just to give an incentive to reduce that action. And I just believe that to use economic incentive is definitely a slight better solution, because if you just say a total degree, then what you will get is a total move, for example, to an extra space kind of station, so to avoid national taxation. But I think that I will just leave really 5 seconds or just a sentence to any of the panelists to react to Paolo's reaction, and then I think that we are off. So let's go in reverse order. Colin, Carlos, and at the end, Jonathan. Colin.
Yeah, I think one thing that really stood out to me was the term algorithmics, and I was just thinking of how academia needs a whole new field of like focusing on this algorithmics. And the idea of the nutrition facts for each AI product. I think one other thought of some of my friends are starting a company which is like the algorithmic audit. So like an auditing company that looks at finances, we need to be doing audits of algorithms of companies to make sure that they are ethical and things like that. So I think there's, as much as I think this is an incredibly daunting task for humans to figure out in the coming years, it's given me a little bit of hope. Okay,
Carlos.
Okay. I think actually the ethic will be a great issue to elaborate in these few years in order to set a core of ethical principles that allow that we can use AI in a way that can actually serve human needs and help human beings in the best way, and in a way that can be sustainable and provide a more fair approach and more equity between people.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan.
I just think that maybe finally, I think the laws have to catch up faster than AI can be developed, because right now there's a lot of things that are very gray and ethics come into question, whether it's morally correct or wrong. So I think this is really a question that we all have to ask ourselves, how like what Father Paolo mentioned earlier, about how much human do we put into what we are doing, and how much do we put in the hands of AI. This is something that we really have to figure out, not as countries, not as individuals, but, I think as the entire human race, of how do we want AI to play in our lives. I think that's something that I would like everyone to think about as well. Yep.
Okay, thanks. And let me just end with a short story. At CSCC, the Cognitive Science and Communication Center at the Catholic University in Milan, we are playing some experiment with robots. And these robots are really dumb robots, okay? They have no artificial intelligence. They just execute code. However, in the perception, the common people perception, even your university student perception, now robot and AI, they are just one thing together. And so just by making very standardized reaction to a kind of interaction, a kind of game that people were interacting, we made people thinking that this robot was endowed with an artificial intelligence. And so people were reacting to this robot when they were talking to the subject as if they were sort of, living being. And that is something that should also make a sort of interesting thought about that, in the sense that we should be thinking about living in a place in which there will be human being and some artificial being around. That is something that I also think will need for their thoughts and consideration. So thanks again to Paolo, thanks again to everyone in this panel, and thanks to you all, 5,000 or something like that are following this conference, and we just stop so that you can run to the next conference. The program of the Economy of Francesco is really tight, and there are 3 days. We will be exhausted at the end, but I hope it would be worth it. Okay, bye-bye.
May I say something?
Yeah, of course.
Peace and good, and take care of yourself and also someone else if you can.
Okay, that's a very Franciscan kind of ending, and so we thanks Father Paolo also for that. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.